Hello, everyone, and welcome
Come on,
in. Sorry, my camera fell off right as I was turning it on. That's always a bad thing to have happen, Jen. That's probably never happened to you. You guys are a little bit more
No, that would never
well run
happen.
than that. Yeah. Well, welcome in, everyone. We're glad to see that we have a good group in here, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more people joining in here soon as well. As it is the top of the hour. Welcome into another Doc Talk. We have been running these for a few months now, and we've been loving them. So, again, welcome in. Some kind of ground rules and rules for the participants. We are going to keep you muted during the conversation between Dr. Lashbrook and Jen, and we also want to hear from you. And when we do want to hear from you, go ahead and click the raise hand button, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen. It's under the reactions button. Click reactions, and then you will see the raise hand button. That'll let us know you have a question. We'll call on you. We'll bring you up on video, unmute your microphone, and ask a question for Jen and Dr. Lashbrook. And Jen is very kind to have joined us today, and we understand that you have a tight deadline here, and so we're just going to go ahead and get started and jump right into it. So Dr. Lashbrook and Jen, thank you very much for joining us. And Dr. Lashbrook, I'll hand the mic over to you.
Great job, Ike, and thanks for coming in, Jen. Good to have you here. By the way, Jen, I'm in Seattle today for family circumstances. So I want to say hi to your beautiful city, and exciting to talk to you about lots of things in Seattle. But Jen, I always appreciate our relationship and all those years at conferences, and I hope we get back. I got my 2 vaccine shots. Where are you in that? Since my age may be a couple years older.
Yeah, I have not been on the list that can get it yet, but I am monitoring it. And I'm glad to hear that you've got that. That means that we're one step closer to hugging at the next conference.
No, thank you very much. Jen, let's get serious now. We got a good group in here, and they're all looking for career starts. Everybody has a personal story, everyone. We had Mark Dominic last week. I have so much admiration for your career, but I want to start back in high school. And actually, even while you're in high school, the buttons that might have hit you and what you wanted to do. Let's kind of walk back when you your career aspirations, high school, and walk us through, because it's an inspiration to everyone.
Well, in high school, I was not thinking about being a sports broadcaster. I was thinking about being a teacher. I wanted to be a 3rd grade Lutheran school teacher. And part of that was that's what I saw modeled for me. Right. 25 years ago, a little more than 25 years ago, when I was in high school, right, there weren't a whole lot of women doing sports. And I knew that I was good in front of people. I knew that I was good if I was teaching things. I had found ways to teach, whether it was Bible classes or, stand up and lead, what do they call them, when class assemblies, in high school. But I never thought about being a broadcaster until a high school guidance counselor suggested that it was something that I look into. And I remember thinking that is the most ridiculous thing in the entire world, because who knows how to even do that? You see these people on TV and you think that they are so far removed from what it is that you're doing. Trying to figure out what the first steps were seemed to be like a big enough challenge. But I did do some informational interviews with a few sports broadcasters in Houston. That's where I grew up. That's where I went to high school. I decided that I was going to get a degree in broadcast journalism from Southern Methodist University.
Wow.
Sports was always something that I wanted to talk about. It just seemed like it was going to be more fun than talking about news. But again, keep in mind, that many years ago, there weren't that many women doing sports. And so what I did was just trust that if I got on the path and I was taking the classes that I needed to take, that the next step would present itself. And I do want to say that for years, Lynn, you've been asking me this question for years at conferences. I've watched you ask other people these questions. And quite honestly, I didn't care about my own story, because my story, I didn't think about it at the time, right? It's the next step that you needed to make. And you just kept doing it, and you put together enough days. And I look back and I've had a 20-year career in sports. What I recognize now, the fact that it's International Women's Day, is that we all need just to see what that path could possibly be. So hopefully today I will answer a few questions around what that path could possibly be.
Well, you can't hit it better. And Ike reminded me to mention that, but you already mentioned it. But walk me through, even though that era and where we are today, and I got to share with you before I go back to you, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster as well in high school. I went to the library, searched through the Dewey Decimal System, and I found really very little of anything in 1966 in sports broadcasting, but that was my dream. I idolized Monty Moore, Merle Harmon. I go back 100 years, and I was fascinated. And I used to do play-by-play in the stands in high school with my buddies, just because. But again, there was nothing there. But let's go back now. Walk me through after SMU, because I think those steps are still important, and we got many questions to ask you.
Yeah, and I'll cover a little bit of what I did at SMU, because getting a degree is one thing, and it is important to be taking classes, whether you are currently enrolled in college or whether you're taking a sports management worldwide class. It is important, right? I have said for years, a trained monkey could do my job, but you still got to train the monkey, right? It's not the hardest job in the world, but there are some very technical things, and there's a skill set that you need to develop to be successful at this. Yeah. Part of getting to that skill set in college was finding every job that I could work in that either related to media or sports. So I worked in the athletic department doing sports information. Those are the people that put together game packets and stats for each team and sport that's happening on campus. We wrote press releases, we put together media guides, and I got face-to-face interaction, not only with some of the coaches and players, but more importantly, with people who ultimately ended up hiring me to be an intern and then ended up hiring me in my first job. I was getting FaceTime with sports reporters and sports directors. And so I would encourage people to look at not just what's in the field that they want to go into, but what's adjacent to. I also worked in the intramural department. I was a flag football official. I knew that I needed a niche. If you're in Texas, football is big. I never played football, but I needed somebody to take me seriously talking about football. So I figured out a way to get them to do that. And I learned a rule book backwards and forwards. I was one of the best football officials in the country for flag football. I went on to officiate at the high school level for 10 years. That wouldn't have happened had I not made some of those choices to kind of do all of this at the same time, right? And then I had an internship in college. I had a couple of them. You get internships when you are taking classes. So again, that's why it's important that you're taking a class with Sports Management Worldwide or continuing the education that you're working on right now towards a degree. And one of those internships ended up paying off in the form of I was seen around enough. And I talk about this when I give my own presentations. It's important to be seen in a space to the point that people don't remember it without you, right? So that means you have to keep showing up at practices and press conferences and every single day to work and every single weekend when it's not fun. My very first job while I was finishing up college was an associate sports producer and a booker. So years before Around the Horn was ever a thing, we did a show that kind of looked like that. We had some of those same people that I would have to book for guests on this nightly sports show. I knew that I wanted to be on TV, but I decided that it was important to take a job that had benefits and a paycheck. And again, I just kind of trusted I would figure something out. I ended up learning how to be a producer, which was not my intent coming out of college. Being a producer is something that I did for the first 8 years of my career. That means I was behind the scenes. But when everybody went home at night, I would stay late and I would put together my own stories and I would voice my own packages and I would pay the photographers in beer and donuts, whichever one they preferred. And if I could get to go out to cover something, a press conference or some sort of event, that beer or those donuts would pay for me to do one stand-up. And if that one stand-up turned out to be decent, I would put it in a story and then I would have my mentor come back and every day or every week, we kind of had this regular cadence and he would critique and give me feedback. And I did this for years until I had enough together where I could prove to them, look, just give me a shot to be on TV, on the cable TV station. Just give me a shot on cable TV.
And
here I am. And here I am. So, I tell people this all the time because they look at my job and they think, man, it'd be so cool to be on TV. And there's certainly a cool factor, right? And I love building relationships and I love telling the stories. And I'll tell you what, I never could have predicted how my career went. but I would not change a thing because producing TV shows is still something that I do to this day. I am responsible for Mariners All Access, which is a weekly 30-minute show. I love producing. You call the shots, you put together the puzzle piece, you tell the stories, you're in control of that. I never would have known how much I loved that had I not done that full time for about 8 years. I was actually hired to be a producer in the current role that I am. So I've been at Root Sports as part of the Mariners television broadcast for 14 and a half years.
Wow.
I've been on the Seahawks radio broadcast for 12 years. And it was because I could take the job of a producer. And I was hired by a person who had previously hired me. So we had a rapport. And I said, look, I love being a producer, but what I really want to do is be on TV. So would you give me the chance to be on air once a week? In small roles. At that time, Root Sports was Fox Sports Northwest. We did all sorts of things. We did a ton of high school stuff, right? So what I was envisioning is just let me show you I can do this with like high school championship football sideline reporting, right? If I'm okay, would you give me the chance to do it more than once a week? If you think I'm terrible, because remember, I had never had a full-time on-air job. If you think I'm terrible and there's no hope for me, then tell me that too, and I will gladly do the job that I am being hired to do. Within 3 weeks of accepting that job, there was a need for somebody who could both produce and host a show. It was a one-off show. It was the year that Boise State beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. And I went out and did the show that previewed that game in Boise. And from there on, they figured out that I could do multiple things. And that's how I ended up doing what I do today.
That's a great story. Let's talk about COVID this year and the role, the media and your role. I know we're getting through it. Everybody's been impacted, including sports management worldwide, no conferences, etc. But I'm fascinated how football and baseball have navigated. But let's talk about what happened when COVID hit and your role and how important it was through COVID.
It was hard. It was hard, not just from a job security standpoint. And now what do we do? It was hard from a personal standpoint. Yeah. People tell you not to be so invested in your job, but when you do love what you do and you truly care about the people that you work with, it was a really hard personal thing to accept and to deal with because it just felt like you not only weren't needed, but that you couldn't do the job to the level that you wanted to. So we spent, as a Mariners broadcast team, about 2 months last year doing interviews from our houses to put on social media. We actually produced a handful of TV shows that originated from our houses and from Zoom interviews. And then when the season restarted, there was zero contact with athletes. Everything happened through Zoom. I was sent to the alternate training site in Tacoma where we had a lot of our prospects. So the only thing the prospects could do was see me in the stands, watching them practice and play, and then watch me like on Zoom interacting. When the NFL season started, I'm employed by the Seahawks, and yet I could get no access to the players. I was in COVID protocols with them. I did test every day at a certain point in the season, and there was no in-person contact with the players. It is really hard to do sideline reporting when you are not in the building because I didn't travel for the first time in my entire career. Yeah. We called all the Seahawks games from now Lumen Field, used to be CenturyLink Field, in a booth. So if they were on the road in Miami, we were sitting at Lumen Field watching the same TV broadcast that everybody else was watching at home and then trying to do sidelines. Our play-by-play guy is trying to call off the same screen. I don't know if, Lynn, you actually know how hard that is. It's next to impossible. What I think we learned about the media is, and sports in general, there is still a need for it, and it brings us together, and we can do our jobs in different ways. And it has given us, in some ways, more access at the same time that it took away access of me being able to just walk up to a guy and have a conversation. It gave us more access in the fact that now on the TV side of things, I don't have to be with a photographer in your living room doing an interview. I can dial you up on Zoom. And so now I can get a hold of just about anybody I want to around the country. and ask for an interview, whereas before you would have to schedule something in the same city or ask a reporter to do that for you. So I do think that's what we learned. We learned new ways of doing things. And here's what I will say, and this goes for whether you are a sports broadcaster or wherever you are. When I finally got settled into how it felt for me personally to feel like I was so far apart from the team that I had become close to, I recognized that you cannot maintain a relationship if you did not stop and bother to build that relationship in the first place, right?
That's a good point.
So the only thing I could do for Seahawks practice was stand on the berm, which is the hill, and watch practice. And then I would occasionally bump into guys when I was getting COVID tested in the morning. And when I would bump into them, I would say things like, oh man, I miss talking to you. I miss seeing you. And they would say, oh no, we see you. We see you standing on the berm every day. We think you're crazy and we think you're freezing your butt off out there. And I'm like, well, that's the only access I get. So you better believe I'm going to be there. But it proved to me that right? Showing up matters if you have built that relationship. And if that's the only way you can do it, then you better show up and treat it like the opportunity that it is.
Yeah. Jen, I guess my first question, we'll have many, and then we encourage anybody to raise their hand. Ike will bring you in. But Jen, my first question is, you're juggling 2 sports and maybe a third sport. Let's talk about your everyday life and when there's a crossover of seasons, and there is, talk to us a little bit. I think people are intrigued, not only your role, not just being on TV, but your day, your behind the scenes and the not conflict, but how you juggle more than one ball, if I may.
Yeah, you got to be really good at scheduling and blocking time. Like I block hours in the day where I'm going to focus on when it crosses over, I'm going to focus on baseball here. Here's the hours of day that I'm going to work on researching for football. But Lynn, you bring up a good point. If you see me on TV or if you hear me on the radio, that is a fraction, like this much of what I actually do day to day. So my day actually starts at about 6:30 in the morning, 6:30 or 7. I still get a newspaper. I still read the sports section. But I also get clips. So newspaper clips, they come to us in an email. When you're part of the media that covers a team, I get an email that comes from the Seahawks and I get an email that comes from the Mariners. During the Seahawks season, there's about 78 pages of articles to read a day. During the off season, there's about 20 pages to read. And for the Mariners right now, we've got about 20-ish pages, and they stay a little bit smaller just because of the cycle of baseball. But my day starts with reading articles and stories and making sure that I'm up to speed. I generally, if the Mariners are playing at home, I will go into the office at about 11 o'clock. That's when I work at my desk. I am writing stories. A big part of any sort of sports broadcasting is writing. And I write those stories that you end up seeing on Mariners All Access. At about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:30, 2 o'clock, the Mariners PR staff will send out their game notes for the day. That has updated stats and little nuggets that we might want to work into the broadcast. I also might need those nuggets for when I do interviews. In a normal year, Scott Service, the manager of the Mariners, would talk at about 3:15. I would get 2 questions with Scott Service when he finishes his general media session. This would take place at T-Mobile Park, which means that I am at the ballpark at about 2:30 for a 7 o'clock game. After I interview Scott Service, I would wait and find whichever player I was assigned to get an interview with. That conversation would happen between me and my producer somewhere between 2:30 and 3 o'clock. Sometimes it's on the phone. Sometimes it's in person. They'll tell me what's going to happen and what interview I need to get to support whatever we're talking about in the pregame show. We rehearse for pregame and a half hour before the pregame show starts. I have a half-hour pregame show. We go upstairs. We watch the game together at about 7 o'clock. We eat dinner for the first couple of innings. Then I sit there. I have my own scorebook. I score. I make notes in the margins because you never know which play is going to end up being the difference maker, right? It could be in the first inning, could be in the third. Sometimes it's the walk-off in the ninth, but I'm making notes so that I know what to ask. I will do a walk-off interview or any sort of interview if they lose in the clubhouse. And I generally get home at about 11:30 at night. When the seasons cross over, football tends to take place during the day. So I don't go into the office as much. I'll go to the football field and watch the Seahawks practice. So my day then would start with articles in the morning at 6:30 or 7. I'd be at the practice field by 9:30. And I would go straight from Seahawks press conferences to T-Mobile Park. And then you flip it from football to baseball.
So my daughter, Amy, who admires you at University of Washington, she kind of said, you need to ask her about situations where you think you're prepared and the interviewee is whatever. Talk about how you handle a crisis where it's not going the way it was planned.
Well, so it depends on which way you mean crisis.
Yeah, right. We'll get to that. Right.
Yeah. So what I would say is this: I've now done this long enough to know that I can manage any situation that happens, right? Once you have been doused with Gatorade in the middle of an interview and you still have to look somewhat pulled together, you can figure this out. So I've got a lot of different techniques for how I interview players and how I interact with players. One of the things that I would do, so if we're talking about crisis, let's say a fan is heckling us during an interview, which has happened. And we're at T-Mobile Park. So we're at the baseball stadium. And this interview is not only being broadcast on live TV, but it's being broadcast in the stadium.
Yeah.
I would try to give as many verbal cues to the players as possible so they know what it is that I'm doing and where we're going with this. I would let them know at some point, I can hear that you have got somebody who really has something to say to you, but we're going to tune them out for a minute. Yeah. And I just want you to talk about what happened there in the 6th inning when you fielded what looked like an impossible hop, right? Something like that. I will also state the obvious on things. When you are on live TV, you are not only communicating with the audience, I am communicating with the person I'm interviewing. I am also communicating with people in the TV truck. They don't know what's happening sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes I need to get a message to them without actually saying into the camera, hey, guys in the TV truck, I need you to do this right now, right? So often I will state the obvious. And that is what you heard me do in that previous example, right? Yeah. There's a fan who really has something to say out here. Yeah. We're trying to tune them out. That's the cue to the guys in the truck to say, hey, you need to take the mics down over here. And this interview is going to be really short because I got a heckler and it's ruining everything that's going on here. But, crisis happens in all different ways. That could be a walk-off that doesn't go the way you planned. Yeah. It could be an athlete who's in a bad mood, somebody who drops an F-bomb, which I did have happen one time. And when that happens, you apologize to the audience and you move on with the interview. But bigger picture for everybody listening before we open this up to questions or wherever Lynn wants to take this next. You learn how to handle those situations in daily interactions, right? So when people ask, well, how can I get to where you are? And what can I do to get there? Any job that deals with interactions with the public, right? So if you're in customer service, guess what you're doing? You're dealing with the public. Guess what I'm doing every time I walk into a locker room or clubhouse? Do you think those guys are super excited to see me after a loss? No, but it's customer service, right? I'm working on this relationship so that we can both reach some sort of a happy medium. If you want to experience what it's like to be on the spot when everything hits the fan, put yourself in a situation to lead meetings, whether they're virtual or in person. I guarantee you things are going to happen that you're going to have to problem solve on the spot. You don't have to be talking about sports to develop these skills. These happen in all sorts of arenas that you're already working in.
Right. So let's talk about 2 issues. You're maybe at home when this happens. Let's go back to the kind of the rumor, the announcement, the media, that Russell Wilson listed some possibilities versus no information on that. How do you immediately, you get that information, kind of walk us through a little bit of the generic pathways for the right soundbite or the right message, because you do have people you work for as well.
I do. And so my job is very different than the people that you would see who are actually commenting or writing about it now, because I am employed by the team and the team does not want me to talk about this. And so in some ways I'm off the hook for having to report about that. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm in the dark. I'm going to work my contacts on the inside so that I really know what's going on with the story, right? And I'm going to ask as many different people in the organization from different branches to see if I can get the full story. Because anytime somebody tells you the story or gives you the soundbite, there is truth to that. But there's also truth to something else. And I'm trying to get a big enough perspective where I can see more than just what's happening right now. But if you are working for a newspaper that has to write on this, or a digital outlet, right, you're going to go to your sources and you're going to try to get a comment from Russell Wilson's people, first of all. But while you're doing that, you develop sources, probably his agent, probably scouts in the building or people in the Seahawks front office, and you're going to start asking what they can confirm. Now, nobody is going to come out and say, yep, everything's true, or nope, everything's false.
Yeah.
They're only going to give you little nuggets. So what you're looking for is enough where you can piece things together. And you've got to be able to trust those sources to know that it's true and that they're not just giving you the runaround at the same time, right? So really it's working relationships and it's having those conversations. You might see something that has happened that's, let's say you start reading stuff that Chicago was putting out, right? Writers in Chicago are starting to talk about, what it would take. Well, you've probably built contacts in Chicago. So you're going to call your counterpart in Chicago and say, hey, where'd you get that? What can you share with me? And see if you can't get something from another source as well. And then when you write it, it is important, whatever you are putting out as a journalist, we are not sharing our opinions. It might feel like that. And certainly you can tell who falls on which side of, should you run the ball more? Should you pass the ball more? Do you like the play calling? Do you not? But really what you're trying to do is present the facts. And now you're going to link facts back to things, right? If Russell Wilson talks about the number of sacks, you're going to go and you're not only going to talk about how many sacks he's had during the course of his career, how many he had this year, at what point those sacks went up, at what point they went down. You'll talk about how much time he has in the pocket on average. And then you're just going to let people kind of formulate their own opinions. It is rare that you divulge everything that a source says. And there's some things that are off the record. But you just need it for background information so you know the questions to ask to the next person.
So switching sports and staying on the issue of controversial and of interest, when the president of the Mariners stepped down, what was your role in that? How did you get that soundbite down? Because that's another sensitive issue for management.
Again, really tricky one because the Mariners own Root Sports.
I know.
So, honestly, the trickiest part for me on that one was there was a lot of emotion in that clubhouse. And that happened during spring training. And my job in spring training was to get interviews with a number of guys that had been mentioned in that talk that was given. One of those players was actually scheduled to talk to me the day that this broke. And he needed some time. And in that moment, again, my role, I've got guys in the clubhouse that I need to maintain a relationship with. The Mariners are the employer, right? I'm respectful on all fronts, right? I did not need to talk to Kevin Mather about anything. I just needed to lean on the relationships that I had in the clubhouse. And ultimately what ended up happening was I got all but one interview that I needed. And I let all of those guys have time and space. So I didn't even talk to them for a day. And then when I went back to them, it took 2 days to get a lot of them on the schedule, but it does me no good to try to force the issue or force the interview if they're not ready. And that's something that I wouldn't have understood earlier in my career. I would have thought, man, what's going to happen if I don't get the interview? Like, I'm going to be in trouble on the other side of this with my manager and the people that are looking and expecting all of this content. And so truly, I just had to sit back and I listened. I listened in the clubhouse. I watched, I
Yeah.
observed. You can tell
Yeah.
body language. You can tell when somebody wants to
Right.
talk and when they don't want to. And at
Right.
the end of the day, these guys are human, and you have to allow for that human emotion to kind of play out, and just be empathetic to
Right.
what they might be feeling.
So before Ike has a question, I have one more question, and back to the Women's Day internationally, etc. Your comment and the breakthrough, and I'm so excited. I say it, access to opportunity democratizes diversity, a big issue in sports. And we're talking gender here now, and not just because you're a woman. I stayed focused on your career. I didn't stay focused on you're a woman in the career, but I've always found it at Indy, we get the females that are more comfortable many times with questions from a female leader like yourself. But I think we've come remarkably in college athletics and professional athletics. We're not there yet, but I feel like we're coming. What's your comment to the females aspiring out there to break down barriers? I mean, we had the referee at the Super Bowl. Tampa had a position coach as well as a strength coach. It's pretty exciting to see how far we've come. And I don't want to use that word like, oh, we've made it, but I've watched it since Title IX was implemented back in the late '60s, and I always said Title IX is the greatest thing government ever did, without getting political here. But talk about your inspiring a younger generation of females that really have aspirations to work in sports and be, including Kim Ang with the Miami Marlins or the Florida Marlins, whatever. It's exciting time, and talk about it a little bit, because from your perspective.
It is. And if you look at just the media side of things, and we're not talking about the opportunities that Sam Rappaport is creating out of the NFL league office for women to work in sports in different capacities. But if we're just talking media, there are more media outlets out there now than ever before. Part of it, when I got into the industry, was there was no digital media. Nobody had websites. Teams didn't have their own reporters. There was only one route to go. Now there are so many different ways to get into sports, to get into media. There's opportunities out there. The best way to look at it, and I think you've heard it from every single woman who has accomplished some of these milestones in their careers that we have heard from in the last year, they never went into it thinking as a woman, I'm going to do this. What they think of is, I am going to do this, or I'm a competitor and I'm
Right.
doing this,
Right.
or this is what I want to do.
Right.
And if you take that as a woman part out of it, because when you do that, the story in your head changes, right? If you separate yourself and say, as a woman, how much harder is this going to be for me? Well, now you've done two things. You've put yourself in a category that you don't even consider yourself part of everybody else. And if you tell yourself it's going to be harder, it probably will, right?
Mhm.
And being successful is hard for everybody. I find advantages to being a woman in sports. Like I've been the only female on a plane. I've been the only woman in a locker room or a clubhouse. I've been the only woman who's officiated with my crew on a football field. Now, could it be lonely? Yes, sometimes it could be lonely, but you know who they remember when I walk in and out of a room? They remember me.
Yeah.
And so you can choose to look at your situations in a whole bunch of different ways. So for women who are aspiring to do anything in sports, look, you can do it. And now there's so many people doing things. Pick one of them and just figure out what career path makes most sense to you. It might not be anything that you ever dreamed of. And I will tell you this, if you would have asked me again, my dream job 20 years ago, 21 years ago, coming out of college, right? I would have said my dream job is being a local sports anchor. And I didn't even pick the city. It's not like I said, I'm going to be a local sports anchor in New York or in LA. I didn't pick like, oh, I'm going to do this in a big market. I just wanted to be anywhere, right? If you would have told me that my job now is what I would have, I would have never believed you. And I'm currently in my dream jobs, and it never was an option. So keep your options open. Be prepared for it to be hard, because it's hard for everybody to succeed in sports, and just find the path that works for you, because there's all different ways to get from A to B.
Right. Let's go to Ike with a question, then we'll go to Sam. We're going to have some fun here. Ike, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Lashbrook. The camera actually stayed on this time after I turned it on, which is good. But Jen, I wanted to ask about basketball. And recently, Kevin Garnett had kind of posted on his Instagram that he had supposedly tried to acquire the Minnesota Timberwolves, and Seattle has famously lost the Supersonics to become the OKC Thunder. And Kevin Durant is a player that is someone that has expressed his desire to bring an NBA franchise back to Seattle. And there's a new team in the Seattle Kraken for the NHL that is going to be, soon to be here. So my question for you is, I guess, kind of multi-part. One, do you think is Seattle ready for a basketball team again? And then also, do you think it should be player owned? And do you think that is possible?
Ooh. Boy, I hadn't stopped to think about the player-owned option. So let me just say this. Seattle wants a basketball team back, right? And they've talked about it. That is the plan. That is what Key Arena has been renovated and is now Climate Pledge Arena. That's where the Kraken play or will play. And that is where the NBA team will play when the NBA comes to town. I fully expect Seattle to get another NBA team. I just don't know when that's going to happen. I know that there was a little bit of talk during the pandemic that an expansion fee could really help revenue for NBA owners, but I think that talk has kind of cooled down a little bit. As far as could a team be player owned, not when a player is actually playing. I don't think.
I don't
just
either.
because of how much work that takes. Now, could they be an investor? Yes. Could they be an owner after their career, after their playing career is over, where they can truly be running the show? Yes. I think that there are players who have that aptitude, but not while they're actually playing. There's way too much that goes into that. And there's way too much on athletes' schedules. Like it's not like they just show up to the stadium and play the game either. They've got full days.
Ike, should I go to Sam next?
Yes, here we
Sam,
go.
welcome in with your introduction and your question for Jen. Good to have you in.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much.
What you got, Sam?
So I got a question. So if I'm going to apply for like a TV role at like Fox Sports, ESPN, just in general, like this is like a make-believe. Do I need to have like a demo reel and a resume, or is cover letter like included?
So what type of role would you be applying for?
Play-by-play broadcaster for basketball.
Then you need to have a demo reel ready to go. Yep.
Demo reel and resume?
Yep.
Okay. Do I need a cover letter?
Yep.
Oh, okay,
yep.
Gotcha. Good
And
to know.
yep, I would put that all in. And I'm trying to think of, everybody's going to be a little bit different. So if they don't have an actual role, so if you're currently doing this, you're probably already networking in circles where you can figure out when they have openings, and then your name would just keep kind of sitting out there, and it would be hanging around and waiting until they had a job open. Sometimes they'll hold on to your resume and your demo reel, for 6 months, 8 months, a year, whatever it is. Some companies won't. So just ask about that one, right? If they have the job open and if they're going to hold on to it, or if you need to resubmit.
Okay. And how many references would you recommend a person would have?
I don't know that it needs to be a lot of references, but they need to be quality references that can speak to the job that you ultimately are applying for, right?
Gotcha. Okay, yeah.
And I think the other thing to keep in mind on this, Samuel, and for everybody else that's out there, if play-by-play is your dream job and they don't have that open, you might need to apply to be an associate sports producer, because they might need to see you work. And that's really, I've had a lot of people ask me, how do you network right now, and what should you be doing? If you were in a position where you were starting out in your career and you're trying to get a job, Your networking is about finding opportunities for people to watch you work. It is not about amassing as many contacts as you have. You could have 150 contacts, but if those contacts don't actually know who you are and they can't vouch for how you approach your work, it's not going to do you any good. So you might need to get your foot in the door with an entry-level job. And then, kind of like what I did, when everybody goes home, you work on your play-by-play with the tapes from the broadcast from that night, right? And you just keep going back and you show them day after day. And when you stick with it and, and they get a chance to see you, then there's a better chance there.
And Jen, let me add, and thank you, Sam. And Jen, let's talk a little bit. You know our company very well. You've taught courses with us. D. Lyman's doing a great job on the sports broadcast. And we have 35 courses. And back to Sam's question, I really, like an athlete, you got to play your way to the next level. You don't agent your way to the next level. I say the same thing. And I was the guy that watered the cinder track and got hired as a track coach at my alma mater. And that was my career start. And you've done the same thing when you're at SMU. Many of our students will take digital video editing or another course and work in the athletic department. Mark Dominic, who is a GM of Tampa Bay, got started at KU, handing out posters for volleyball. And then he had the work ethic and he got recommended to both the Chiefs and the Royals. But let's talk a little bit. You've watched our company grow. We have these 8-week courses. We do informational interviews. But somebody like I went in my bedroom with a tape recorder practicing to be play-by-play. Now you can do podcasts. You can go to a high school that doesn't have play-by-play. I think the world is an opportunity for anybody that wants to work in sports. I think one of our challenges, you can't start like Russ Ball was assistant strength coach at Missouri in 1980. And now he's the executive vice president of Green Bay Packers and salary cap. Mike Zimmer, a graduate assistant head coach of the Vikings. I think my strategy, along with our 20,000 graduates, is talking about taking a course, connecting, information interviews, resume building, and find a job that you can grow and go from Fort Hays State to Missouri to Western Michigan, whatever. Let's talk, because you know the sincerity of our company. You've been part of our company. You do a great job moderating as well and inspiring. But let's talk about SMWW is really designed to start the process and not just apply for jobs and have 3 resumes because that's the job you want. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And so when you take an SMWW class, you start to fill in the pieces of what you don't know, right? You've seen one thing. And like Lynn was saying earlier, years ago, you would go to research these things, and it's not like you go to the library and you learn how to do play-by-play, right?
What's a library?
I know. That's just dating myself right there, right? But when you take one of these SMWW classes, you are seeing the inside look at what it's actually like to work in sports and things that you probably didn't consider. Because again, you only see the finished product. You don't see everything that goes into that. Informational interviews are huge. And I get asked for informational interviews all the time. And I'm happy to do it if the person requesting that informational interview is actually on a path towards being a broadcaster, which means you cannot be a 35-year-old currently working in pharmaceutical sales and say, hey, I really want to be a sports broadcaster. Can I pick your brain? There is no path for you to get from that to broadcasting. Now, if you're in an SMWW class and you say, look, I'm taking the class on sports media and play-by-play, could I do an informational interview? Yeah. Well, now that tells me that you're serious about what you're doing. So there's certainly that. And then, I still keep in touch. In fact, I see one of my former students on the call. I still keep in touch with them. I am still a reference for some of them and a sounding board. And you don't get that everywhere else. So absolutely. I mean, you talk about a networking opportunity. That's where it is. Those are the people who can vouch for how you do your work and how you show up.
Jen, as much as I'm passionate about online education and Zoom, and we didn't miss a beat during COVID, we actually had a surge in enrollment. I say that because we've been doing it for 25 years. But I will tell you, one of the things that everybody misses, not only our staff and our faculty, those opportunities to go to a venue like the Indianapolis Combine, the NBA Summer League, the NHL Draft. We're going to get back on the road soon here, Jen, and I want you to comment on that. Those conferences, not just networking, but we always allow our students to ask questions to those in the room and those in the panel. And I really believe we're going to continue to grow with my Sunday chats have had 30, 40 people. It started with 2 people 25 years ago, but I think we're in a 2.0 revolution with sports growth globally, not just sports betting revenue and esport. Just your comments of where sports is going and how in our society, the globalization of sports from what you know from Seattle, because I think it's an exciting time and we're going to be coming back, call it the roaring 20s. And I think, what's your prediction coming out of COVID? Your own opinion this summer at the ballpark?
Yeah, I think that fans are hungry to get back to a ballpark for sure. And I think that we have, it's funny as I think back to when COVID hit last year and everything shut down a year ago this week, some of the first events to come back in a broadcast were NASCAR. Now, I've not watched a whole lot of NASCAR in my career, not since I was an intern in Dallas, and that was part of my job. And yet I enjoyed watching NASCAR because it was what was on, and they did a great job with the broadcast. And there's just a hunger. Sports brings people together in a community like nothing else does. And so certainly, whether you're picking soccer, which is already more of an international sports, or you're finding that you're connecting with people in Europe or other continents because the NFL is so huge, or the NBA has got a presence in China, and MLB has their presence in South America and Korea and Japan, and there's certainly it is more than just what you see on TV and the fans that you're a part of. And when we talk about networking and being in public, I'm going to throw this one out there. People always want to know, okay, so I'll tell people, stay on my radar, right? I don't mind talking to you. I don't mind having an email exchange with you, but here's what you can't do is send me an email that says just checking in. I don't know what you're checking in on, right? And if you're just checking in to see if I can recommend you for a job, this probably isn't going very far. Now, this is where sports, and I teach this in corporate presentations. Sports is the ultimate follow-up opportunity. Let's take the baseball season. There are 162 regular season baseball games. There's a beginning, there's an all-star break in the middle, there's an end of the regular season, there's a postseason, there's awards that get given out, there's weekly awards, there's monthly awards, there's year-end awards. There's going to each team. It does not matter if you finished last in the division or the league, each team is going to go on a winning streak and each team is going to go on a losing streak. If you can identify the baseball team that your contacts follow, I've just listed off a dozen different times that you could send them an email during the course of the season. Absolutely. And say, hey, I see the Mariners are on a 10-game winning streak. That must be awfully fun in Seattle. Just thinking about you when I saw that on SportsCenter. Hope you're well.
Jen, as you do in Indy, I'm going to do this. We got about 5 more minutes. We have one more question. Ike says you have a hard 2:54 departure date. And
I know.
You know how I put pressure on you on the clock at Indy. I like to stay on schedule too. One last question. Let's welcome in Cameron for your introduction and last question for Jen. And then Adam will come in to make sure everybody gets all their other questions answered. Cameron, welcome in.
How you doing? I had a question.
Where are you from, Cameron?
I'm from Windsor, North Carolina.
Okay.
Long ways away from you all.
Yeah, and you got the accent to prove it. Go ahead.
But one of the things, it's kind of a 2-part question. It's one part deals with media and another part deals with actually becoming more involved with the sports industry. Me personally, I've just recently graduated in 2020 with a Master of Science degree in kinesiology. Concentration in exercise and sports psychology.
That's what I have.
Yeah, that. So I feel like you understand that is one of the hardest things to find a good career in. Like starting off. I know one of the things we're talking about was an entry level position. Like one of the things I'm looking to do is move to Charlotte soon, and I'm looking for an entry level position there.
What do you want to do?
Well, honestly, any entry-level position with maybe the Hornets, the Panthers.
So you want to work in basketball or football, and we can help you. Have you taken a course?
No, this is actually my first time.
I know, but when you sign up for a course, at least Adam will talk to you about that. I'll let Jen comment about us, but we take somebody like you that's passionate. and I have my doctorate in kinesiology, and it doesn't get me to first base, but I have it, and it makes me an educational leader for a moment. But degrees in this changing world, we have 35 courses that you've never been taught in your master's or undergraduate. And I'll let Jim kind of inspire you about how we could help you get a job in sports with your background. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, Cameron, so you're looking to get an entry-level job if you move to Charlotte, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then what was the other part? You said you had a media part of that question. I'll see if I can tie this all in.
Okay, the media aspect of that question is one thing that I always find myself doing a lot of is talking sports, whether it's hockey, like basketball, football, baseball, anything. I always find myself in somehow talking about it, maybe sometimes even debating, arguing about it sometimes. So one of the things that I'm curious about is I've always had an interest in kind of starting like a podcast. Like and I know that's not exactly like my background, but that's one of those things that I've been interested in.
Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, I'll be able to do that.
You got 4 minutes, Jen, and I have to kick you out or you'll get fired.
And I know I have to tell you why the Seahawks have me doing a virtual event at the top of the hour. And so they'll panic if I don't log on by 5 till. It's not like I don't want to stop. It's not like I want to stop talking. Okay. So Cameron, here's what I would say. What I'm hearing you say is you have an expertise in kinesiology and you like talking about sports and you want to do a podcast, and I would make your podcast in line with your expertise in kinesiology. So there are people whose expertise is to talk about what happens when we talk about a player's injury, right? What I would do is keep it all in line, right? Unless you truly want to do a 180 and you don't want to use that master's in kinesiology, right? I'd keep it in line and I'd find a way, whether you're talking to, you could reach out to team doctors or team trainers or strength and conditioning coaches, right? And it doesn't have to just be in Charlotte. If you're doing a podcast, you could reach out to anybody in the country and find people to be on your podcast, which could be 15 or 20 minutes long. You might not be able to monetize that, and you might not have a whole lot of eyeballs at first, but it will start getting you credibility and leverage when you talk to other people. Plus, it's going to give you a reason to network and connect with folks that you ultimately want to be working with. The hard thing about a podcast and the hard thing about starting a blog is consistency. Everybody is gung-ho when you start, and it is super hard to keep it up. So whatever you decide to do, if you're going to do 1 episode a month or 2 episodes a month, understand, think about the busiest time of year or the day that you would never, ever work on. Let's say a Saturday during college football season or a Sunday during the NFL season. And then picture doing the podcast on that day, because that's what's going to happen, right? Like, you have to be willing to do it on the busiest day and on the day that you don't want to do it. So just set reasonable expectations and maintain that consistency so that, again, it's all part of what people are seeing when they look at you and what you bring to the table.
Cameron, stay on. Adam will be in to talk to you about strategies. Jen, I want to, again, personal colleague and friend. I look forward to seeing you this spring, if I may. And we're going to get back on the road again. And you're a blessing in our lives. And I just wish you the very best. And I look forward to hockey and just keep expanding your horizon. And we at SMWW thank you, and thanks for coming in.
Well, thank you. And I see some comments here in the chat. Hi, Charisse. It's good to see you. I know that you don't have your camera on. Yeah, it's fine to reach out to me individually. You can shoot me an email, Jen, Jen, at talksportytome.com. Somebody asked if I'd come back and do a part 2, only if Dr. Lashbrook would like me to come back and do part 2 of this discussion. And then last thing, please give Amy and Liz my best.
Thanks so much.
You know that I'm thinking about you and thinking about you in the
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. I thank you so much. And let's see if Adam's in. Thank you, Jen. Have a good meeting coming up. Adam, thanks for coming in. And Adam's been with me a long time. And Adam's here to make a couple announcements. If you have any follow-up questions about SMW, our Doc Talks are designed to get you comfortable with, you can follow your career path. I tell everybody every week in my chat, you journalize today and monetize tomorrow. We want everybody working in sports. That's our goal. We have over 20,000 graduates from 163 different countries, and we're lucky to have you come in today. We'd love to help you further. Adam, I'll hand the mic to you. Thank you for coming in.
Sure. Excuse me. Thank you, Dr. Lashbrook, and thank you to Jen. Excuse me. I'm fighting off a little bit of a cold here, but wanted to go over a few things, what SMWW offers. I know they hinted on a few things during the actual chat itself, and I do see a couple people also still have their hands up, so I will try and answer your questions as best as my ability. It might not be Jen Mueller answering them, but I'll do my best. But here at SMWW, we offer over 30 classes, just like Dr. Lashbrook had mentioned, and the applications are free. You can go into smww.com. There's a top heading bar with courses, our upcoming conferences and doc talks, also our advanced certificates that we have to offer. So you go in there, you fill out an application. I know Cameron had mentioned he might be interested in getting a podcast going. I would look at our sports media and content course. It's taught by Brian Harper, Vice President of the Minnesota Vikings. And it goes over everything in regards to what teams are doing with social media, or also our sports broadcasting course, which is taught by Dee Lineman, who works for the Philadelphia 76ers and ESPN Radio. But she will also go over podcasts and internet radio and how to get that started. So probably the sports broadcasting course, if you're looking to do more social media content, then the sports media and content course would be a good fit for you, Cameron. But what I wanted to mention as well is what we do after the courses as well. So we have free resume services that will help gear your resume towards the career you're looking for. No matter if you take one of our scouting courses, we even have courses in cricket, whatever it may be, we'll update your resume and get the things that you are learning in those courses on your resume. Also, you can use your instructors as references. Now, Jen had mentioned, having quality people as references really will help draw some attention to your resume when you're sending that out to teams. So all of our courses are taught by industry professionals, former GMs, advanced scouts, and people that are actually in the business and do it. So to be able to use that as references is huge. Our instructors also give out career opportunities before they go to the public via LinkedIn. So I think that's a huge opportunity as well. And we also have a whole job links page on what teams are hiring and for what positions and where to be sending your resume after you are through with your course. So those are some of the things that we do for you after the course as well, which I think, including doing the informational interviews that was mentioned in this talk, it's a great way to make connections. And we see a lot of people that do several informational interviews sometimes will get hired on by the people that they do those informational interviews with. So when you fill out your application, the process is fairly simple. You fill out your application, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, what your interests are, what the ultimate goal is. And then a career counselor like myself will be following up with you either that day or the following business day to kind of get a better feel for what you're looking to do. And then we'll give you our recommendations, and that's all free of charge. The courses range in price between $9.95 and $14.50. We do have payment plans available. So maybe when the stimulus checks come out, and you might be looking to update that resume, look at one of our courses. And like I said, we do have payment plans available as well. I want to go down. I see Isaac and Larry still have their hands up. Like I said, I will try and answer questions as best of my ability. But Isaac, if you want to go ahead and ask yours.
Well, hello, how you doing today? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well, I was going to ask Jen a question. See, can I do one of my informational interviews? Because I needed one more for my class that I'm taking.
Oh, with her?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, then, like she said, I believe her email address is just Jen at Talk Sporty to me, I believe is what she said it would. So what I would do is just email Jen, and she used to be the instructor for one of our sports media courses. And then unfortunately, just with her busy schedule, we had to move to a different instructor. But I'm sure if you emailed her, it sounds to me like she'd be more than happy to do that. And just to let you know, those informational interviews can be via phone, Zoom, or it can just be, if there's someone that I know, I've interviewed people in such positions as director of football operations and things like that, where they might have a busy schedule. So sometimes if you email them and just wondering if you could get 5 minutes of their time and ask your questions via an email as well, that will satisfy that as well.
Yeah, I had another question before because I started my intern with Tampa Bay Bats. It's a basketball team down in Tampa Bay.
Okay.
As a remote sports broadcaster for my intern.
Oh, nice. Well, that's a good way to get. That's a good way to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, I did because they didn't want nobody in there yet. So ask her how hard it'd be to do it remotely.
I think with everything going on right now and how accessible games are via video now, I don't think, from my knowledge, I don't think that would be that hard to be doing that position remotely at all. Because you could literally be watching the video of the game while you are doing that.
Yeah, because I want to be a sideline reporter, but I was wondering how hard it would be.
Well, and I think Jen even mentioned, when COVID first hit, she was doing sideline reporting kind of remotely as well. When she was first talking about that and when COVID hit. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that have changed. Scouts in football are going to some of the pro days, but there's no combine. So a lot of the scouting is going to be done this year in football via video. A lot of the basketball right now, the scouting is being done over video. So, I think more and more you're going to see that changing, to where people are doing more things remotely. I know just dealing with some of the players that I've co-represented with Dr. Lashbrook in the NFL, a lot of all their OTAs and everything were done virtually. So, I think more and more, and I think that, you're going to see that become more part of the game, not only doing the scouting in person, but also via video, because I think over the past year, it's shown that, it can be done that way. All right. Next up, we'll go to Larry.
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
Good, Larry. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. This is for, I believe, Mr. Lynn and Cameron. I had recently started my company, Sports Ed. We introduce kids to careers in sports without being an athlete. So it's similar to what you guys are doing, but for kids 12 to 19. And for it, I started a podcast. I do need another person there. So if you're willing to get your feet wet with me while we go through the course at SW, that'll be perfect. I learned a lot doing it on my own as well. So in walking and taking the course, I'm supposed to take it after I finish this certification by the end of next month. So I should be taking that course. And listen, I'm really glad to find out that you do have the payment options to pay it off. I just didn't have the bulk at the time.
Sure.
So,
yeah. So you're already registered for that course?
No, I'm finishing one course now, and I'm
okay.
I'm finishing one course.
Yeah, and I believe that's going to be starting up. I believe the next start date for that course is April 19th. So just keep that a heads up, and you can get registered for any of the courses all the way up until the date that they're starting. That's the nice thing about doing online. Obviously, it's always better to get registered early just so we can get your materials to you in a timely manner, because we do ship out the little nice earbuds that I'm wearing. We also ship out the books and materials you'll need to complete the course. But we have had people sign up all the way to the day of the course. They actually get registered, and as soon as you register, you get your login and password right away into the e-arena, which is the virtual classroom. So just keep it in mind that it's on April 19th. I always tell people, try and get registered as soon as you're able to. We do limit the courses to about 20 students. That way, during the live Zoom chats with your instructors, it's not overcrowded or overwhelming, and everyone gets at least 2 opportunities to be called upon throughout the live Zoom chat with your instructors. So I always tell people, try and get registered as soon as you're able to. But like I said, money can be tight sometimes, and if you have to wait all the way up until the week prior, or the weekend prior to the start date, we would still be able to get you in.
And just to make sure the balance has to be paid full before you start the class.
No. So you can make the first initial payment upon enrollment. And then the way the payment plans work is if it's a $9.95 course, it would be 3 payments of $350 spread out over 3 months. So let's say you pay on, I'm just throwing out dates. Let's say you paid on April 15th. That would be the first installment would be due on that April 15th. You get your login and password to the classroom and you can start the class. And then the payments come out in 30-day increments after that.
Okay.
So April 15th, then May 15th, and then the final payment would be June 15th. But the course balance does need to be paid in full before you finish or when you finish the course for us to redo your resume, for us to send you out your certificate and things like that. If the balance isn't paid, we'll work with people on that, but we won't send you out the certificate and redo your resume and things like that until the balance is fully paid off.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah. That's what I just wanted to make sure. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Does anyone else have any other questions in regards to any of the courses? Cameron, I know you might have had some more questions. Like I said, that sports broadcasting course for something that you're looking to do in the podcast world would be a great way to get started. Just kind of what Larry said, he learned a lot on doing it on his own, but it's nice to kind of get some help from someone who's been doing it for a long time, someone like D. Lyman, and just how to get it all started and how to get your views to where eventually you can possibly start monetizing, your actual podcast itself. Let's go to Jonah. It looks like he has his hand up as well. Jonah, are you there?
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I gotcha.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I took D. Lyman's sports broadcasting course in the fall. I was just wondering, I think Dr. Lashbrook mentioned a digital video editing course. I was wondering if there are any courses like that would be useful, because I want to go into play-by-play broadcasting. So any courses that would be related to that in any way, other than the sports broadcasting course that are coming up soon?
Yeah, I mean, the digital video and editing courses we have to offer, and thank you for being an alumni. And if you are interested in a future course, just to let you know, you do receive a $300 alumni discount. But what the digital video and editing courses, we have one for football and hockey called XOS Thunder, and that's the software they use in the NFL. Division I schools use it as well, and also in hockey, the NHL, OHL, WHL, used to actually break down film for the coaches and the scouts.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and we have one for basketball as well called Synergy Sports Technology. And it's the same thing. The coach comes to you that, the Blazers have a game coming up against the Bucks, and the coaches want to break down how many times Giannis pulls up for a jump shot between 10 and 12 feet when he drives to his left from the top of the key.
Okay, so it's more applicable to front office and scouting than for sports media.
Yeah, but I mean, in the future, sports media, it's not bad to know how to use it, but you're not going to be using the same software in sports media as you would be for those particular courses, because those particular courses you actually get access to the XOS Thunder software. And for Synergy, you actually get access to the Synergy software, and you learn to actually edit, log the film, and everything.
I see. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, not a problem. Any other questions, Jonah?
I think that's it.
Okay. And like I said, I mentioned for Jonah, if you are an alumni, you do get a $300 discount off any future courses. Also, if you do multiple courses, when you first sign up, if you know you're going to take 2 of our courses, we do suggest a 2-course strategy a lot of times, just because it does make you more marketable for different positions. You'll get a $400 discount if you sign up for 2 courses, and you can still do the payment plans and everything when you do that. And also, like I mentioned, we now have advanced certificates. There's a hot name in the industry right now to getting badges, quote unquote badges, on your resume. So when you do one of our advanced certificates, this will earn you one of those badges, and we'll get that on your resume for you. And not to mention redoing your resume. And depending on the courses, like I said, if you're doing sports broadcasting, you know, another thing you do in that course is work on doing demo tapes. You know, you got to make sure you're not only sending out your resume, but you're also sending out demo tapes. Or if you take one of our scouting courses, have a really nice cover letter, have your resume, but then also send out a scouting report. What our courses do is it's something to get on your resume where you're bringing something to the table. I talk to a lot of people that have sports media or sports management, just general sports management degrees. And, you know, a lot of the jobs and positions that they're qualifying for is like running a city's park and rec department or something like that. It doesn't necessarily translate into professional sports. And you don't necessarily need a sports management degree to get into sports. You know, you could have a background in finance or business, whatever it may be. But if you want to get into football scouting, you know, our football GM and scouting course would teach you the National Bledsoe scouting systems, the grading scale, how to write the football scouting reports. And it's things like that that teams are looking for on your resume to separate your resume from the person that's sending in the, you know, the cover letter with a resume saying, I'm really gung-ho about the Packers and I grew up in Green Bay and I love the team and I would love to work with you guys. But if there's nothing on your resume that is bringing something to the table for them to at least bring you in for an interview, your resume is going to go in the pile because they get 100 of resumes with cover letters like that every day. So that it's just going to go into a pile and get lost, to where if you actually have something substantial on your resume, it will get moved into the other pile and be, hey, you know, this guy's got some qualifications that might be useful to us. Let's at least bring them in for the interview process. And then it's up to you selling yourself. But also what the courses do to you or for you is when you do get into that interview process, it makes you more confident in what you're speaking about and the questions that they'll be asking you. You'll feel confident going into that interview because you do some of the informational interviews also as well during the course. Any other questions from anyone else? I haven't been monitoring the chat, so if you're asking questions in the chat, I apologize. But
Let's
any
go to
other...
Samuel here, Adam.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yep.
For some reason, I don't see when Samuel has his hand raised. I'm sorry.
He's having an issue with it. Go ahead, Samuel.
Okay.
Yeah. So I sent you an email like 30 minutes ago, and I wanted to know if because I took a sports broadcasting course, I think 2 years ago, and I wanted to know if I sign up again, do I need to go through like taking the test writing paper and then do the informational interview, or could I just pay the price and do the chats?
So you said 2 years ago you took it. So basically all you would have to do in that situation, so we have a 5-year grace period, to where if you took one of those courses and you wanted to get back into it, we have some people that do that with the digital video and editing courses as well, just because they're going to get a interview and they kind of want to refresh what they learned if they took it a while back. So actually we just have $150 re-enrollment fee. So you're familiar with the e-arena, obviously the online classroom.
Yes.
So if you still have your login and password to that, and if you don't, I can, after I get off, and either later today, I'm fighting off a cold, and so is my daughter, unfortunately. So either later on today or tomorrow, you can just go right into the e-arena if you still have your login and password. If you don't, either I can send it to you or your career advisor will.
Yeah, could you send it to me then? I don't remember.
Sure, not a problem. What I'll do is when I see your email, that will remind me to send it over to you. And once you log back into that e-arena, when you go to the My Courses tab, if you remember that, there'll be a box that I believe says need more time or something like that, and it'll ask you if you need what some people do is you can add 6 weeks worth of extensions to the end of the course. We understand life comes up, so if something happens and you miss a few weeks, you can always utilize those, or it will say, do you need to re-enroll? And you'll just click that re-enrollment. You'll pay the $150 fee, and then you can get right back in the course. And your participation at that point, I would just let D know that, hey, I took this course 2 years ago and I'm really just more interested in getting in with you and doing some of your chats. And that's the reason for me for retaking the course again. So just make sure your instructor knows. And any coursework you did will transfer over as well.
Okay. Yeah, it was, I don't think it was with Dean. I think it was with Brian. Brian from broadcasting.
Okay.
But I think he had like a cold or something, and then something came up, and I don't think he showed up for the remaining 7 weeks.
Okay, well, we'll take care of you. I'll definitely reach out to you, and we'll figure something out for you. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
There's no doubt we're always willing to work with people, so we'll get.
Is there a class for in June?
I know.
Or in the summertime?
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be something in the summertime. I believe both the media course and the broadcasting course, I believe the next start dates again are in April. So most likely there will be another, because that would be considered a spring start date. So for both those courses, there should be something available in summertime as well.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions from anyone else, Ike, or can you think of anything that I might have missed?
No, I think you pretty much covered it all. I just looked up the next start date for sports media and content strategy with Brian Harper, and it is June 14th. Brian is the vice president of content and production for the Minnesota Vikings. So he's a great person to be, learning from. But
and I apologize. I just got your text about.
You just looked at I thought about butting in, but it is what it is.
Well, it's these nice SMWW shirts. The collar kind of pops up on it.
Yeah.
So.
All good. Well, thank you, Adam. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're gonna have more Doc Talks throughout the month of March and through April. Very excited to keep running these. They're very popular, and we love to host everyone. So thank you for joining us, and I think we'll leave it at that. So we'll see you all on the next one.
Thanks, Ike.
Thank you.